A lot of you guys loved my last graffiti video, so I had to come back with a killer piece. So if you're new to my channel, I'm Amira, and Boston is a place where I show my behind the scenes for my brand design work and digital graffiti too. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So first I'm gonna start by creating an artboard of 1000 by 1000 pixels. You probably guessed the word from the file name, which is volt. I'll start by using the brush tool, lowering the opacity to as low as 15%. And then I'll start sketching the letters. Before sketching, I usually draw a grid in the background to stick to a certain composition or maintain the flow of the words, but this time I just want it to be horizontal and a little bit slanted, like nothing fancy. You're probably thinking how messy the sketch is, but I promise the final piece will be sick. Next, I created a new layer where I'll go over this sketch with a darker stroke. You can see here I raised the opacity from 15 to 46%. And the reason why I do this is to refine the outline so that it becomes easier to know which strokes to trace when we're creating the final outlines in the next minute. Now that we're done with the sketch, we'll start outlining them. So I created a new layer and renamed it as outlines, and using the pen tool, I'll follow the sketch. Notice that at this point, I'm just outlining the whole outer shape in one go, without going in between each letter. The reason why I'm doing this is that it will be easier to adjust the colors, the shadows, the outlines all at the same time than doing it for every letter, if you know what I mean. This will actually make more sense once we add the shadows in the next minute. Now that I outlined the whole shape, I'll start adding the strokes that lie between the letters. Notice that I left out the T on purpose because I think of it as a separate shape, as it's not really overlapping so much like the other letters. Now it's time to give them some nice color. And if you know me, you'd know that I find plain colors quite boring, and I always love to use a gradient of colors instead. So here I'm using the gradient tool. When I first started sketching this piece, I imagined something electric, strong and bold, electric currents around the letters, lightning bolt glows, stuff like that. So I thought blue would actually add to this theme. Next, I copied this outline layer and placed it beneath that old outline layer. I changed the name of this new layer to thicker outlines. You can guess that in this layer, I'll increase the stroke weight to make this piece bolder. I changed the colors of the outlines too to a darker cyan. I totally feel like it's blending more smoothly this way. Black outlines actually create a horrible contrast, I really hate it. Next, I copied the thicker outline layer to create a new layer for the background shadows. So on the right, you will see two thicker outline layers, but the one at the bottom is actually for the shadows, but I forgot to rename it, my bad. I wish my process was a little more organized. Now you see those corners, how they make the letters look so plain? I'm going to make them end at a sharp point instead. Now between the V and the O, I'll remove the outline and instead just draw two strokes, one on the top and one on the bottom, leaving a gap in between so that the V and the O seems like they're connected, yet you can clearly read them as distinct letters. I'll do the same thing for the O and the L. Now we'll jump into my favorite part, adding the highlights. So using the pen tool, I'll draw white strokes on top of the letters. And I'm using the Gaussian blur effect from the Effect tab to give the highlights some glow effect. Notice that this is something different from the neon effect that we're gonna add later on. I'll continue to draw these strokes on the rest of the letters and then select all of them to add this effect at once. Next, I like to add bolder highlights, so again, I'm using the pen tool, but this time I'm actually drawing shapes instead of leaving them as white strokes. So I go over the corners mainly. I just really love this step because, you see, the first few minutes of my process feels like it's no way I'm getting any close to the sick piece that I imagine. But once I add the highlights, I feel like, okay, things are starting to look cool now. And it actually gets addicting, being eager to add even more to this piece to elevate it. I feel like the fun actually begins at this point where I keep experimenting with new effects. It's like we're finally done with the foundation, the letters essentially, and now we're adding the icing on the cake. So here I drew two rectangles and I used the outer glow effect from the stylize option in the effect tab. Next, we'll start adding some drop shadow between the letters. I'm using the pen tool again, but this time the stroke color is black. Next, we're going to create the background. So I'm creating a new layer and I'll keep it beneath all the other layers because, it's a background, right? It gotta stay at the back. So I'm using the rectangle tool to draw this background. It automatically filled it with the gradient I used for the word. We're going to make it a radial gradient instead and definitely play around with the colors. Purple sounds great actually. Next I created this new layer where I'll add the background neon effect. To create this effect, I'm using the outer glow from the stylize menu of the effect tab. Now I want to add this kind of reflection effect on the shadows. So I simply copied just the shadow layer and then using the eraser tool I'll cut through this shape, the shadows. And I'm going to fill some parts of them with a pastel pink shade or a gradient of blue and pink I think would look better. We can try that too. Anyway, it looks more like a weird melting effect. I don't know if you see it this way too, but I'll just use the eraser tool to clear out the bottom so that it does not seem like it's blending with the outer pink outline, if you know what I mean. It also looks better with the lower opacity actually. Next, I want to try out something different, which is to add some kind of chrome effect on some parts of the letters. So I'll use pink and blue tones for this. Again, I'm using the gradient tool. This gives the word that kind of an edge we want. Now I want to accentuate the sharp angles of this piece, like that zigzag of the T, the L, and the V. Now again, I'm using the pen tool to draw white strokes around the outlines of those parts of the letter. This time, I'm using both the outer glow option and the Gaussian blur effect. To make these strokes shine even more, I drew some sparkles on top, and if you'd love to see a full tutorial on how I draw them, I'll leave you a link in the description of a video I made. Now it's time to draw the electric current effect. I mentioned earlier that I imagine it to be electrifying and glowing so boldly and has some edgy feeling too. So I'm using the pen tool to roughly draw the outline of the current. Before drawing this piece, I had to actually look up on Pinterest the anatomy of lightning bolts. I've never tried drawing lightning bolts before, let alone sketch them. So there's this pen that I really loved, explained it so well. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share it here, but it illustrated how there's first this wobbly zigzag line that branches out and has some smaller loops around the branches, and the width of the lightning bolt is never constant. You'll find the corners so thick, and then the stroke narrows down till the middle, and then the stroke weight increases as it meets the next thick corner, and so on. So I tried to implement that in this piece. I don't want to keep this effect just at the background, but rather make it overlap the letters too to keep everything coherent. And this way, I'd make the letters pop even more. It's like the word itself is glowing. I also added the outer glow effect to the lightning bolt too. I was thinking of using Gaussian blur too, but I honestly think it's unnecessary. It looks great already. I added more of these sparkling stars on the part where the bolt intersects the letters, and I feel like this made it really pop. Fast forward in this video, I think I'm so addicted to purple that I couldn't help not changing the whole palette at the last minute. I may be biased, but I feel like purple did bring it to life. Let me know what you guys think. I won't be hurt if you like the bluish one better. The way I drew the lightning bolt on the top totally ruined the composition I had in mind. So I changed that by flipping this side, I think, to the left one and switching them out. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed watching my graffiti process, please thumbs up this video and subscribe to my channel to watch my next videos. Thank you so much for watching.